Comedians appear to have begun snapping. They've reached their limit in the culture war, and their outrage, the outrage culture is just too much. It's too much. So here I am. I just did a video earlier about Dave Chappelle, and I will say this right now. You seriously need to watch the Dave Chappelle Netflix special. That man is a legend. But I also want to throw it to Joe Rogan, Ricky Gervais, and other comedians that are refusing to bend the knee to the woke outrage culture. You do you. Much respect. These people can't get us down. Well, as I talked about this, and then sure enough, I'm browsing the news like I do, and I come across this story. Pete Davidson berates University of Central Florida audience, "You should effing grow up." And I started laughing. Yes, they need to grow up. It's a college audience, and apparently Pete Davidson just started wailing on these people. Not necessarily about woke outrage, but he did call them the R word, the ableist R word, which I can't say on YouTube. Yup, that's right, I can't say it. It's so ridiculous. But he called them effing R, you know what I mean, for being dumb, and it was epic. Now, in this circumstance, Pete Davidson isn't necessarily talking about woke culture or any of this outrage, but he is talking about how these young people are just whiny babies, and they boo him and they're upset, and he's like, "Oh, please, grow up." And I'm like, yes. So I want to highlight this, but I also want to talk about Ricky Gervais doing the same thing, right? Just a couple weeks ago, saying don't apologize. And then I want to I want to go back to a little bit about the Dave Chappelle thing, because the overarching theme we have here is that it seems comedians are going to be the cavalry riding into the culture war saying, enough, we're going to make jokes and you can't stop us. I think, I can't remember who this, I think it was Matt and Trey from South Park, or they said if you can either joke about everything or you can't joke about anything. And they're right. If you make a joke and one person gets offended so you apologize, well then why not apologize to everyone? And that's the point. So Dave Chappelle, man, did he go nuts. I mean that in like a good way. Like he just was like dropping nukes. Some of the most offensive comedy I've ever heard, seriously. Yeah, but let's read this story about Pete Davidson. So they say, the university is not pleased with how the comedian handled himself. Well, I am very pleased. Props to you, Pete. Pete Davidson on Monday night berated an audience at the University of Central Florida after some people in the crowd took out their phones. Davidson was captured on video lambasting the crowd for more than a minute, saying he would leave if they did not act accordingly. "I don't have to be here," said the Saturday Night Live cast member at the tour stop. "I can just give them their money back because I don't give an F." Saying UCF, in his opinion, is the middle of effing nowhere, Davidson called the crowd privileged little a-holes before making the situation even more uncomfortable. That's why the world is going to end in 25 years, because you're all effing R. Yeah, there it is. I can't say it. I mean, you can see it on the screen. I'll get in trouble anyway. He said, "You should effing grow up." There were some laughs as Davidson ranted, but it turned into a smattering of boos and random heckling. Here we go. This is the best. Oh my God. After about 90 seconds of insults, Davidson announced he would continue the show. "I just wanted to scare you, but grow up. Seriously," he said. UCF officials confirmed to The Hollywood Reporter Davidson did continue the show, which lasted around an hour. Still, the university was not pleased. Mr. Davidson's abusive language, particularly his use of a derogatory slur, is contrary to the University of Central Florida's values of inclusion and respect for all. Mark Schlube, UCF spokesman, told The Hollywood Reporter, "It's disappointing that his rant spoiled an event that was meant to welcome students back for the semester." I don't think so. In fact, I think that was incredible. Now, it's not necessarily about wokeness, but it is about him going after the privileged sensibilities of these college students who, oh no, you're offended. Too bad. I would have loved to be sitting there. I'd love to go to a show where someone just ragged on the audience. I'd be laughing the whole way and clapping. Yes. As I mentioned in the past segment, we all deserve a pie in the face every so often. No one is above scrutiny, and this is epic. But let's do this. Let's jump to the next story, because I didn't talk too much about this. I did a little bit, but here's the thing. Pete Davidson telling them to grow up. That's exactly what they need to hear. You are adults in college. Chill. Poor babies, huh? Well, Ricky Gervais is also taking on what they call verbal terrorism. Yup. Ricky Gervais is the man. Joe Rogan, Pete Davidson, Dave Chappelle, you guys are epic, and you are carrying on the legacy of people like George Carlin. Much love, much respect. So let's read about this. The National Review says, the left should listen to comedians more. Yeah, well, they're doing a really bad job of being funny, I gotta admit. This is why the left can't meme, because they're just unfunny and they're overly sensitive and scared. Ricky Gervais calls himself a lefty liberal champagne socialist. But when he says, I don't agree that feelings are more important than facts, he echoes Ben Shapiro. Yes! The point of intersection, both men support speaking freely. This quality makes them somewhat courageous, though it shouldn't. How did free speech become a right-wing issue? If you go to allsides.com, they show you how they define left and right. And I kid you not, a website is defined as being right-wing if they promote free speech. And it's not all sides' bias. It's a fact, and we all know it. The left in media has abandoned the cause of free speech to the right, and that is insane. Because it is the left that has used free speech to challenge oppression from the get-go. And now what do we see? That story earlier today about an Antifa professor losing his job? Well, that's your ideology, and that's what happens. I disagree with it, but that's what you champion. So sure enough, yes, there are still good people who exist, and it's going to be the comedians, because comedians push boundaries. Let's read a little bit more. Another commonality is that both tend to elicit a lot of shock and dismay, or at least feigned shock and dismay. Gervais dismisses adverse comments on social media as the scribbles on every public toilet wall in the world. Bravo, bravo. In an important 2-hour conversation that recently appeared on the podcast Making Sense with Sam Harris, Harris is a vigorous defender of the culture of free speech, and his interviews are always penetrating. This is one of the best. Gervais giggles with disbelief when he says, John Wayne was canceled recently, 40 years after he died for not being woke enough. Right on. He stresses that political correctness, I'm all for it, because he doesn't want to hurt people's feelings, but standards do change. So applying them backwards in time is a strange fixation. They talk about Kevin Hart, which I'm not going to rehash, you get it. They say he apologized and deleted the tweets. I'm going to give away some of the jokes from Chappelle. He said that when Kevin Hart was told to apologize, he said, F you, I quit. And then went on every major television talk show and apologized for 6 weeks. And it was amazing. Dave Chappelle, spot on. He did. And at first we were all like, you go, Kevin Hart, you're amazing. And then he did. We did the apology tour, and it was disheartening. Don't apologize to these people. They don't care. An apology is an admission of guilt. Listen, I used to work for nonprofits, and I will tell you what these companies will do. Let's say you're at you have a restaurant, and you invite like a group of people in. You're like, I don't know. They walk in your restaurant and they order food. Turns out, oh, they're the Proud Boys. Uh-oh, you didn't know. And then all of a sudden, people start plastering. You need to ban the Proud Boys. Do this and do that. Do you know what they're looking for? First, they do want you to ban the Proud Boys, and when you do. And when you apologize, they will not say that the Proud Boys unwittingly entered this restaurant and the restaurant didn't know. Of course not. Are you nuts? They're going to add a line, an accolade on their organization's chart that says something like, we successfully stopped the Proud Boys supporting restaurant from hosting their meeting. They will not give you any ground, so don't apologize. So that's why all this cancel stuff is absurd. That seems like a low ball. So they say, Gervais says, you can make your jokes bulletproof at the time, but now you have to make them bulletproof for 10 years. That seems like a low ball estimate. As time passes, people don't just let their irony detectors rust and fall into disrepair. They seem to actively sabotage them. Willfully ignoring comic intent is a growth industry. Yeah, that's one of the funniest things about this. It's like, in the Dave Chappelle segment, and I mentioned this, he talks about how Kevin Hart said he wanted to hit his kid over with a dollhouse. And it's obviously a joke because it makes no sense. But they take it as though he's making a fact. He's making a true statement about his personal opinions. No, it's absurd. As Chappelle points out, he'd have to buy the dollhouse first. It makes no sense. Well, I don't want to prat on too much because I think you get the point. These are awesome comedians who are stepping up and telling people to STFU. Take a look at this. Simple Google search of Dave Chappelle, and we can see Vice's Outrage. You can definitely skip Dave Chappelle's new special, harumph, I say. Then you see Reason in the Examiner saying, oh yeah, eviscerate this. And then we can see there are more straightforward, like Hollywood Reporter. When we have The Ringer, Dave Chappelle's provocations have turned predictable. They say that, Slate says he defends, it's more straightforward. Chappelle's new comedy hour, our comedy special, draws heavy criticism for courting controversy. Good for him. Good for him. No, look, you know what, man? I'm not going to read this. They talk about Vice. They talk about these platforms. An early review of the special from the New York Times said Chappelle hasn't adjusted his material for the setting. Everyone was laughing as far as I could tell, and so was I. So you know what? You crazy, woke, religious, intersectional, whatever you want to call it, just go away. Dave Chappelle makes the best point, and I will end with this one. He makes a really offensive joke and then says, hey, if you're offended by this, just know you clicked on my face. And I'm just like, that's right. People get so mad at my YouTube videos and others. You chose to watch it, dude. You chose. But it's not about whether or not people have a right to choose. It's about telling people they don't have a right to choose. And that is the end goal. Saying, I don't care if people like what you do. I will do everything to stop it. Well, eventually people get angry and refuse to accept it. Hopefully our Constitution protects us going forward. And hopefully more comedians step up and tell everyone to go shove it because they're going to make a joke, and too bad if you don't like it. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. Next segment will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Podcast every day at 6:30 p.m. And I will see you all next time.